So today is Friday, 2nd of May, 2025. So we'll begin. Today is the Avirbhav of Sripad Sankaracharya. Sripad Sankaracharya's Avirbhav today, and it's also the Tirabhav of Sri Srimad Bhakti Vilas Garbasti Nemi. So we've posted both of these personalities' descriptions on our WhatsApp thread. I won't go into details describing them. Describing the history of Sankaracharya, etc. would take a whole class in itself, and I want to keep up with our reading of Caitanya Caritamrta. So Sankaracharya ki jai, Sripad Bhakti Vilas Garbasti ki jai, Gaur Premanandi. Agyan Timirandasya Gyananjala Shalakaya Chakshu Unmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Guruve Gauda Chandraya Radhikaya Tadalaye Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tadabhaktaya Namo Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam. Priya Surupe, Daita Surupe, Prema Surupe, Sahajabi Rupe, Nijana Rupe, Prabhueka Rupe, Datana Rupe, Swavilasa Rupe. Anapita Chirim Chirat Kuranavartino Kalo, Samarapaitam Unnata Ujjala Rasam Swabhakti Shriyam. Haripurata Sundaradu Tikatam Vasadipita, Sadakhar Dare Kandare Spuratu Vasachinandanaha. Yam Prabhajanta Manapetyam Apetya Krityam Dvaipaina Viraha Katara Ajuhava Putre Titam Mayatayo Taravo Vinedustam Sarvabhutam Hridim Munimanatoshmi Bhaktya Vihina Aparada Lakshay Shiptascha Karmadi Taranga Madhye Kripa Mayitvam Sharanam Prapana Brinde Namaste Charana Ravindam Bhajami Radham Aravinda Netram Smarami Radham Madhurashmitasyam Vadami Radham Karuna Bharadram Tato Mamanasti Katina Kapi Tavaivasmi Najivami Tvayivina Iti Vignaya Radhe Tvam Naimam Charanantikam. I'm first of all offering millions and millions of Dandavat pranams unto the lotus feet of my most beloved Gurudev, Nitya-lila Pravishta Om, Asto Tarasara Shishimad, Srila Bhakti Vedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj. And I'm offering the same again millions of times unto our dearmost Nitya-lila Pravishta Om, Asto Tarasara Shishimad, Srila Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. And I'm offering again my Dandavat pranams to our beloved Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami Pat, who has given us this Caitanya Caritamrta. And again, I'm offering all my Sastang Dandavats to our Rupa Nuga, Guru Varg, and all the Vaishnav and Vaishnavi devotees of the Lord, my Dandavat pranams to all of you. Vancha kalpa tarubhyascha, kripa sindhuvevacha, patitanam pavanibhyo, Vaishnavebhyo, namo namaha. So, we've reached the third chapter of our Caitanya Caritamrta reading. First chapter was establishing spiritual masters, and we can't move without that connection. So this was the first prayers of invocation in his Mangalacharyan that Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami is pronouncing. And the second chapter, we were establishing that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is that supreme personality of Godhead. And we described Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami describes the different Purusha avatars, Mahavishnu, Garbhadakshay, and Shirodakshay Vishnu. And then he explains how they are all connecting with this material manifestation. So they are all included in this. They have some connection there. They're not affected or touched whatsoever by the material energy, yet they have some activity in the creation of it, all of them. Mahavishnu manifests all the material worlds from the pores of his skin,
and then Garbhodakshay Vishnu enters into each of those worlds, and then into every living entity or jiva that comes in the world, then Kshirodakshay Vishnu manifested. But all these Vishnu avatars, they are all manifesting from originally Lord Narayan in Vaikuntha. And Lord Narayan in Vaikuntha is manifesting ultimately from Brajendranandan Shyam Sundar through the Chatu Vyuhas coming from Brajendranandan Shyam Sundar. So this was the line that Srila Krishna's Kaviraj Goswami has been describing to establish conclusively that that same Brajendranandan Shyam Sundar is none other than Sachinandana Gaura Hari. So this was his purpose in describing these different aspects of the Parush avatars, etc. And he explains about Krishna with his Prabhav and Vaibhav manifestations and all the different avatars. These were all described. So now we've come into this third chapter, already understanding that Mahaprabhu is that Supreme Personality of Godhead. And we've been describing this beautiful verse. Krishna's Kaviraj Goswami begins this chapter with this verse, Anapita Chirim Chirat Karunaivartano Kalo. Not for a very long time has this avatar manifested in the world, Chirim Chirat. And then he goes on to explain the amount of time in Lord Brahma's day. And we were describing yesterday how there are 14 Manvantaras. In each Manvantara there are 71 cycles, Divya Yugas within each. And in the 7th Manvantara, in the 28th Divya Yuga, then Krishna manifests. And straight after Krishna, then Sachinandan Gaura Hari manifests. So now we're putting it in focus, in time-wise, historically-wise, so we can appreciate first the spiritual masters and then the conclusive evidence that Mahaprabhu is none other than Brajendranandan Shyam Sundar, and then pinpointing his appearance in this one day of Lord Brahma. Of course, Lord Brahma lives for 100 years. So in every day, 365 days of Lord Brahma, then Mahaprabhu is going to advent in this way. So we can think about these vast cosmic topics and appreciate our utter insignificance in the whole picture. When we lift our consciousnesses to that higher level of appreciation of cosmic time, and we realize how we are all being manifested from the Purusha avatars, but under the original desire of Srimati Radhika to please Krishna, all of these universes are manifested from Swarup Shakti. So we get the picture. So now we're coming to our verse, which is text 12 is where we reached yesterday. And Srila Krishna's Kaviraj Goswami was describing the different rasas. He described this Dasya, Sakya, Vatsalya, and Shringara. This was the last thing we read, that there was no Shantiras in Vrindavan itself, but that Shantaras is a quality principally aspired for by the materialist to actually come to that Shantaras in the Brahmajyoti. And we've already discussed that and discarded that in the previous verse, in the previous chapter, rather. We went from Brahman to Paramatma to Bhagavan extensively in that second chapter. So now we're going to unpack these different rasas and how Mahaprabhu, in his desire, his external, the reasons for his external appearance is actually to taste these specialities in the pastimes of Krishna Lila, which, as Brajendranandan Shyam Sundar, he was tasting from the Vishaya, from the enjoyer's perspective. But he wants to taste himself now. So we'll come to these topics. So we've reached verse 12.
Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Dasa Sakapita Mata Kanta Ganalan Vraja Krida Kare Krishna Prema Vistahan.
Translation. Absorbed in such transcendental love, Lord Sri Krishna enjoys in Braj with his devoted servants, friends, parents, and conjugal lovers. How could someone enjoy with Krishna in Shantaras, in Braj? It wouldn't fit. We need to understand these topics carefully. So, purport. The descent of Sri Krishna, the absolute personality of Godhead, is very purposeful. Purposeful, just like we've described these previous chapters, how it's all got absolute purpose and direction and focus. It's fixed beautifully. It gives a sense of authenticity. It gives a sense of potency when we appreciate that fixed nature of the Lord's manifesting these worlds. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is said that one who knows the truth about Krishna's descent and his various activities is at once liberated and does not have to fall again to this existence of birth and death after he leaves his present body. Janma karma chame divyam evam ye vaditapadaha tyaktva deham puna janma naiti mamriti sorajana. That it's described in Bhagavad Gita chapter 4, verse 9. Krishna is saying that one who understands my birth and appearance and pastimes, then he doesn't have to return to this world again. And Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada is reiterating this verse. In other words, one who factually understands Krishna makes his life perfect. To understand Krishna, then I can begin to have a relationship with Krishna. This is still in the Sambandha bracket, we can say, the relationship understanding. Imperfect life is realized in material existence. Doesn't matter how fortunate we are in the material world, it's still material. Whatever the situations is that surrounds us according to our various karmas, it's still material. And that's not the nature of the ultimate jiva, of the jiva's pure nature is not material. We've already discussed this. Krishna makes his life perfect. Imperfect life is realized in material existence in 5 different relationships. Oh, we're getting that same grinding again, exactly the same time. We share with everyone within this, sorry, I'm distracted. Imperfect life is realized in material existence in 5 different relationships we share with everyone within the material world. Neutrality, that's Shantaras, servitorship, friendship, filial love, and amorous love between husband and wife, or lover and beloved. These 5 enjoyable relationships within the material world are perverted reflections of relationships with the absolute personality of Godhead in the transcendental nature. So we've often described this perversion of this world. The perversion of this world is that we are the center of our focus, whereas in the spiritual world, only Krishna's pleasure is the center of our focus. And we get an understanding of this, the deepest understanding of this, by hearing about the gopis' prem for Krishna. This gopis' prem for Krishna is the highest exhibition of love known to man. There's nothing higher than this. So this is introducing us to the pure love. If we focus on here on the Vrindavan pastimes, we're getting the full loving appreciation of Krishna and his Sakhis, and also his Sakhas, and also his mother and father in Vatsalya, and also the cows, etc. These 5 enjoyable relationships within the material world are perverted reflections of relationships with the absolute personality of Godhead in the transcendental nature. That absolute personality, Sri Krishna, descends to revive the 5 eternally existing relationships. So there's a purpose. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada said at the beginning of this purport is very purposeful. There's a purpose for Krishna manifesting, to revive these relationships. Thus, he manifests his transcendental pastimes in Braja so that people may be attracted to that sphere of activities and leave aside their imitation relationships with the mundane. It's imitation because it's false. That's our acquired material nature interacting with the material nature. It's not our real nature. Our essential nature is pure spirit. We've described Vinamsa Tattva, we're manifesting from that pure spiritual realm. We're a spark of that spiritual nature. So these mundane relationships are completely temporary, yet we get so bewildered by them, so caught up in them. It occupies our lives so totally, but it's all temporary. That even a dull man can appreciate when he sees death all around him for a start, when he sees so many relationships are breaking also. They're not permanent, and they go through certain heights and lows, etc. Very oscillating types of relationships. Then, after fully exhibiting all such activities, the Lord disappears. So, especially in the Vrindavan Lila, this is what we're coming to. Text 13.
Yateshta vihare Krishna kare antatan antardana kari mane kare anuman.
Lord Krishna enjoys his transcendental pastimes as long as he wishes, and then he disappears. After disappearing, however, he thinks thus. Text 14.
Chirakala nahi kari prema bhaktitan bhakti vina jagatera nahi avastan.
For a long time I have not bestowed unalloyed, loving service to me upon the inhabitants of the world. A long, long time. If we calculate like we were describing yesterday, we can see it's an entire day of Lord Brahma when he last manifested himself. Anapita chirim chirat. Chirim chirat means a long, long time. So this much time. Without such loving attachment, the existence of the material world is useless. Without developing this love for Krishna, what is the purpose of this material world? If it's just to get more embroiled in mundanity, that has no objective. It's completely temporary, it's nimitic, it has no ultimate lasting value. And yet Krishna will appear. Anugrahaya bhaktana manusyam deha ashrita bhajate tadrishin kritva yashrutva tatvalovat. He manifests his pastimes to attract the jivas to him. The purport: the Lord seldom awards pure transcendental love, seldom. But without such pure love of God, freed from fruitive activities and empiric speculation, freed from karma and gyan, one cannot attain perfection in life. Anyabilasita sunyam jnana karmadi anavritam. This is describing what is uttam bhakti, what is pure bhakti. Seems like we're cursed 2 days in a row. This noise has to go on next door. What to do? I'll close the window. It might keep it down a little bit. No. I wonder if Master Manjari can make some phone calls from Delhi and request them again. Okay, text 15.
Sakala jagate more kore vida bhakti vidi bhaktya brajabhav paite nahi shakti.
Translation. Everywhere in the world, people worship me, according to scriptural injunctions. These are such important points that we're hearing now. Please listen attentively. I'll read this again. Everywhere in the world, people worship me according to scriptural injunctions. But simply by following such regulative principles, one cannot attain the loving sentiments of the devotees in Brajabhumi. We can't attain Raganuga Bhakti just by performing the precepts of Vaidhi Bhakti. This is not going to be possible. Text 16.
Aishwarya Janate Shaba Jagatak Misrita Aishwarya Stitila Prem Nahi Mora Prita.
Knowing my opulences, the whole world looks upon me with awe and veneration. But devotion made feeble by such reverence does not attract me. Just like Arjuna, when he saw the universal form, what did he do? He began to apologize for the intimate relationship he'd previously had with his dear friend Krishna. He began to put Krishna at a great distance. So this is not pleasing to Krishna. But devotion made feeble by such reverence does not attract me. Krishna only wants that full heart connection, as we see in all the Brajabasis. This is Raganuga Bhakti we're being introduced to right now in the 3rd chapter. Purport. After his appearance, Lord Krishna thought that he had not distributed the transcendental personal dealings with his devotees in Dasya, Sakya, Vatsalya, and Madhurya. One may understand the science of the personality of Godhead from the Vedic literatures, and thus become a devotee of the Lord and worship him within the regulative principles described in the scriptures, but one will not know in this way how Krishna is served by the residents of Brajabhumi. If we simply observe how those personalities are worshipping Krishna according to Vidhi, according to Vaidhi Bhakti, then we will not know Krishna's personal nature, which only manifests in Vrindavan, Brajabhumi. One cannot understand the dealings of the Lord in Vrindavan simply by executing the ritualistic regulative principles mentioned in the scriptures. This is Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada writing here. So if anyone thinks that Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada wasn't explaining Raganuga Bhakti, they're wrong. It's all here in all of his purports, in all of his commentaries. He's referencing it so many times. He's not teaching it in the world directly because his disciples were very, very new. When he left this world, the oldest disciple would have been 11 years old. He was only preaching basically for 11 years. That's not sufficient time to purify the heart to understand these topics. But in all of his writings, he's referencing it fully. So we should appreciate this point because it's right the way through. There are so many references in his commentaries, in his purports. By following scriptural injunctions, one may enhance his appreciation for the glories of the Lord. Yes, that awe and reverential mood will inspire respect for the Lord, an honor for the Lord, and faith in the Lord. So that must be there. So in the Western world, for example, where Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada was first preaching, Krishna was not even heard of when he first went there. So he had to begin from that level of introducing Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But then after 30 or 40 years of understanding this, a little bit, then we're qualified to hear what my Gurudev claims. I was listening today to one lecture and he was saying that your Prabhupada has come to teach you that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and I've come to tell you that he's not. So we should be able to reconcile these two understandings. He is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but in my relationship with him, just as it's saying here, Aishwarya Janate Shaba Jagat Mishrita. Knowing my opulence, the whole world looks upon me with awe and veneration, but devotion made feeble by such reverence does not attract me. This reverential worship doesn't attract me. By following scriptural injunctions, one may enhance his appreciation for the glories of the Lord, but there is no chance for one to enter into personal dealings with him. Very simple to understand. The distinction between practicing Vaidhi and practicing Ragma. We're not qualified to practice Raganuga Bhakti, but still we should hear about it. We are practicing Vaidhi Bhakti, all the external rules and regulations, etc. Raganuga Bhakti is something internal. It's practiced with the internal consciousness of what I'm doing. I'm doing the same activities. I'm chanting Hare Krishna. I'm worshipping Thakurji. I'm making an offering. But I've purified my vision of who is this offering for. I'm still doing the same activities externally. That never changes. Don't become confused with this. Externally, we are following Vaidhi Bhakti. Explicitly, it's described, Raghunath Das would have those rules of Vaidhi like carved in stone within him. My Gurudev was the same. He followed explicitly the rules and regulations externally, but internally, he was relishing a much higher state of consciousness. But the external must be there, so don't get confused and begin to, even for a moment, neglect the external rules and regulations. They're very important. Giving too much attention to understanding the exalted glories of the Lord reduces the chance of one's entering into personal loving affairs with the Lord. To teach the principle of such loving dealings, the Lord decided to appear as Lord Chaitanya. This is remarkable. This is the conclusion of this one purport, that Krishna himself wanted to give this, and he comes himself as a devotee. He comes himself in a covered incarnation, which many don't understand, which why Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj has extensively given us this understanding of the real identity of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as being none other than that Supreme Lord himself. That must be established. It's very scientific what's being presented here. Text 17.
Aishwarya jane vidhi bhajana kariya Vaikuntaka yaya chatu vida mukta pana.
By performing such regulated devotional service in awe and veneration, one may go to Vaikuntha and attain the 4 kinds of liberation. Yes, if we just perform this regulated devotional service, we will cross over the Viraja river and actually come into the spiritual realm, but it will be Vaikuntha Dham. And we know from reading Brihat Bhagavatamrita, Sanatana Goswami has described clearly the mood in Vaikuntha Dham. This Gop Kumar, he comes in his cowherd boy dress, and immediately he's told, no, you should wear something much more sober than that. And don't play your flute here. And don't dance like that. Just sing nicely. And just sing nicely. Like almost in a church choir practically, or just chanting beautiful mantras to satisfy Lord Narayan. So Sanatana Goswami, out of his great mercy, he's given us this vision of Vaikuntha and of this mood of Aishwarya Dham. This is where, in Vaikuntha, remember, there are 2.5 rasas. Shantaras, Dasyaras, and a little bit of Sakyaras. But these rasas are nothing like the same rasas as are in Braj. The rasas in Braj are of a whole different nature because they have no Aishwarya whatsoever. So the Dasya in Vaikuntha is nothing like the Dasya in Goloka Vrindavan. We should understand these matters very, very clearly. Text 18.
Sharsti Swarupa Aras Samipya Salok Sayujana Laya Bhakta Yate Brahma Aika.
Translation. These liberations are Sharsti, achieving opulence, equal to those of the Lord. Sarupya, having a form the same as the Lord's. Samipya, living as a personal associate of the Lord, and Salokya, living on a Vaikuntha planet. Devotees never accept Sayuja, however, since that is oneness with Brahman, or Brahm. That's Sayuja, that's like the impersonal realization. So these four liberations, Sharsti, Sarupya, Samipya, and Salokya. These four liberate. So Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada writes in another place that this is like something having an inferiority complex, because you think the Lord is so high that you have to approach in such a submissive way. How is that going to engender loving relationship, which is what we're talking about? Krishna's Kaviraj is crafting a whole consciousness, a whole mentality for us to step into and appreciate the real nature of Raga Nuga Bhakti, because this actually is the real reason for Mahaprabhu's descent, to inspire and give. This was Krishna's desire, and it's certainly Mahaprabhu, who is non-different to Krishna, his desire also, and that's going to be explained very, very clearly in the following chapter. Purport: those engaged in devotional service according to the ritualistic principles mentioned in the scriptures attain these different kinds of liberation. But although such devotees can attain Sharsti, Sarupya, Samipya, and Salokya, they are not concerned with these liberations. Devotees are not hungry for this liberation or these liberations. For such devotees are satisfied only in rendering transcendental loving service to the Lord. This is the principle. How can you demonstrate to humanity this idea of pure Shuddha Prem? How can this be demonstrated? Only by Krishna coming himself can it really penetrate the hearts of all living entities who are so enamored by the material glitter for a start. And if that becomes purified, then they just want liberation, freedom from suffering, because everyone wants to be happy. That's the nature of the jiva. We want happiness. There's a very beautiful description of Priti that's described in the Jaiva Dhamma, but I don't think I have it with me. And we can post it. But it's a very beautiful description that every jiva is hungry for love. They're looking for this love, and it's a Bhaktivinoda Thakur in the 18th chapter, at the very end of the 18th chapter. He scrolls through all the different degrees of focus that jivas think they can find this love in fruitive activities, and then in liberation. And in each case, there's no sustaining connection of relationship, of loving relationship. But it's only in bhakti that this can manifest, in priti. Priti is what love is called. So, the fifth kind of liberation, Sayuja, is never accepted even by merging into the Brahman effulgence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. To attain Sayuja, or merging into the Brahman effulgence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is the aspiration of the impersonalists. A devotee never cares for Sayuja liberation. Beware. We've described it extensively. We discussed it in both the chapters. This verse, Vedanti tat tattva vedas tattvam yajnanam advayam brahmati paramatmati bhagavan. We discussed these degrees carefully, so we're getting educated. Text 19. Yuga dharma pravritam nama sankirtan charibhava bhakti diya nam nachamu bhavan bhuvan. Translation: I shall personally inaugurate the religion of the age, Nam Sankirtan, the congregational chanting of the holy name. I shall make the world dance in ecstasy, realizing the four mellows of loving devotional service. What a conquest, what an ambition, what an amazing act of the utmost compassion and mercy.
apani karmi bhakti bhava angikare, apani cha achari bhakti sikami sabare.
I shall accept the role of a devotee, and I shall teach devotional service by practicing it myself. Example, what's that? Is higher than precept. By pointing out these things is one method, but by actually doing it yourself, Krishna really wanted to give us this, didn't he? So he really demonstrated with his whole life, his 48 years as Mahaprabhu, he demonstrated leaving his Vishnu Priya, his wife, his mother, his elderly mother. He went alone, basically, to Puri. He entered Puri alone. He'd left his associates behind after Nityananda broke his danda. He walked alone into Puri. So that mood showing that this solitary focus must be there internally. What is it? Where are we going for? It's a solitary journey ultimately because it's internal. Purport. When one associates with a pure devotee, he becomes so elevated that he does not aspire even for Sharsti, Sarupya, Samipya, or Salokya, because he feels that such liberation is a kind of sense gratification. Pure devotees do not ask anything from the Lord for their personal benefit. If that is described as Aropsita Bhakti or Sakam, like Dhruva Maharaj. He was practicing his sadhana under the guidance of Narad, so therefore it was successful. But he wanted to gain a kingdom greater than his great-grandfather, greater even than Lord Brahma, which he did ultimately. So that was the motivating impetus for him to practice that bhajan. So if we have that motivational desire just to become freed from the suffering and encumbrances of this material world, this is not encouraged to be the principal focus of the sincere sadhak's meditation or practice, because it won't conclude in a loving relationship. It's not so easy. It's not so easy because we're being pricked by the material energy. We want out. But there's a path, a very careful path. Srila Rupa Goswami in his Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu begins to describe initially the bliss of liberation, because that's why everyone comes to devotional service. That's what we want initially, is liberation from the suffering, from the pinpricks. But then he very sweetly changes to the bliss of service. The bliss of service to the object of service. There must be an object if we're going to do service. And to establish that object and that not only service, but loving service. When that becomes appreciated and understood, then one can really move forward with his devotional practice. Pure devotees do not ask anything from the Lord for their personal benefit. Even if offered personal benefits, pure devotees do not accept them because their only desire is to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead by transcendental loving service. At least we can imagine that place where we fully want to immerse ourselves in service to that divine personality. No one but the Lord himself can teach this highest form of devotional service. Therefore, when the Lord took the place of the incarnation of Kali Yuga to spread the glories of chanting Hare Krishna, the system of worship recommended in this age, he also distributed the process of devotional service performed on the platform of transcendental spontaneous love. This is very interesting. So when the Lord, he took the incarnation of Kali Yuga, he's the Yuga avatar, And within the Yuga avatar, all other avatars, he's the Anksi. So all the Anksas are within him. Therefore, Kalki is also within that Supreme Lord. And this is the praman for this. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada himself is saying this. He also distributed the process of devotional service performed on the platform of transcendental spontaneous love. Someone asked me the other day about spontaneity. Spontaneity is something that just comes very, very naturally from the heart, direct, with enthusiasm. That's spontaneous, instant. We can imagine like in a dream. In a dream, there's no false ego. You act spontaneously. But when we craft our consciousnesses to focus on rendering service to the Lord, and then we connect with our spirit soul, then we are able to perform this spontaneous devotion. But it takes time. It doesn't happen immediately. To teach the highest principles of spiritual life, the Lord himself appeared as a devotee in the form of Lord Chaitanya. Text 21.
Apanene kaile dharma sikana nayaya nata siddhanta gita bhagavata gayaya.
Unless one practices devotional service himself, he cannot teach it to others. This conclusion is indeed confirmed throughout Gita and Bhagavatam. Text 22.
Yada yada hi dharmasya glani bhavati bharata abhyutanam adharmasya tadatmanam srijamyaham.
Whenever and wherever there is a decline in religious practice, O descendant of Bharat, and a predominant rise of irreligion, at that time I descend myself. Text 23.
Parityanaya sadhunam vinashaya chaduskritam dharma shamshvapana tatya sambhavami yuge yuge.
To deliver the pious and annihilate the miscreants, as well as to establish the principles of religion, I myself appear millennium after millennium. So there's a purport. They're saying text 22 and 23 were spoken by Lord Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita 4, 7 and 8. Text 24 and 25 which follow are also from the Bhagavad Gita. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada used the Bhagavad Gita principally to spread the platform for establishing Krishna as that Supreme Personality of Godhead. Because Krishna himself is speaking this truth. But now, Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Maharaj is actually using this Caitanya Caritamrta in so many of his teachings, as well as Jaivadhamma, to establish what is beyond Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita establishes the fundamental truth, surrender, sarva dhamma parityaja. But this surrender is the threshold of bhakti. Surrender is about me performing some act of submissiveness to the Lord's desire. It's me-focused. Sharanagati is about me surrendering, being submissive to Krishna. That's the principle, and that's the threshold. One must be Sharanagat to even proceed a little bit. But it is still, nevertheless, the first step.
Utsideyo ime loke na kuryam karmached aham sankaryasya chakartashyam upahanyam ima praja.
Translation. If I do not show the proper principles of religion, all these worlds would fall into ruin. Krishna's teaching, the highest dharma. So if he's not practicing it himself, yada yada hi dharmasya, no, yad yad charitris, this verse, we'll come to that. Then how will people have faith in his acts? That's why it becomes confusing when Krishna appears to perform adharmic acts in Vrindavan with the gopis. So that has to be also purified, that consciousness. There's many aspects to completely become spontaneously attracted. There might be niggly little doubts in the mind, that we stay reserved. So that has to be also purified. All of that is going to be purified if we just stay with this process and hear attentively. Yes, this is the next verse. Text 25. Yada yada acharitya shreshtas tad tad eva taro jana sayat pramayan kuryate lokas tad anuvartate. Whatever actions a great man performs, common men follow. And whatever standards he sets by exemplary acts, all the world pursues. Krishna himself is saying this. So therefore, him dancing with other men's wives in a conjugal manner in Vrindavan, this must be understood. Only Krishna can do this. This is not to be, how can we imitate? We're here in this material world because we're trying to imitate God in the first place. It's called envy. We want it to be like God and like the controllers. So Krishna says, okay, go and do it in the material world. You can do like that. You can imagine yourself as being a supreme controller, not being submissive to the Lord's energies, etc. So this is our predicament. So Mahaprabhu and the Acharyas, they have to explain all these points very, very clearly. Shukadev Goswami, he's explaining those points. Those 6 points, 7 points. Krishna is like fire. He can never be contaminated. And second, he should never be imitated. This is reprehensible because this is what I'm saying. This is why we've come into this world. It's called envy. We're trying to imitate the Lord. The Lord's statements are always true. No selfish motive is there. The Lord doesn't have a false ego. Even great saints in this world don't have false egos. What to speak of the Lord? Krishna lives in all hearts. Therefore, what is his relationships and connections with those Sakhis that he's engaging with? He's already there in the hearts of all those. And human-like pastimes will attract the jiva. Anugrahaya Bhaktanam, we've said this already today. And Yoga Maya created replicas for all those Sakhis. So these doubts have to be purified. Mahaprabhu will inspire these doubts to be purified. Text 26.
Yuga Dharma Pravartane Hoya Amsa Haite Amavina Anye Nara Vraja Prema Dite.
Translation. My plenary portions can establish the principles of religion for each age. His plenary portions, not himself. In such a yuga, we have manifestations like Parameshwara, Vaikuntanath, Yogeshwara, these very Aishwarya type of personalities. In Treta Yuga, we have Lord Ram, Purushottam Maryad, the great king of the planet, establishing Dharma. And in Dwapara Yuga, we have Brajendanandan Shamsundra annihilating all the demons on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. But he's also performing his Vrindavan pastimes. Facebook just went out. I won't touch it and I'll see if Facebook comes back on again, but perhaps if a message wants to be sent to Facebook users, they can come across onto YouTube. And we'll hold on with this. These are such important, powerful sections of the Caitanya Caritamrta. They're establishing the principles that Krishna is not attracted to those who only worship him in Aishwarya mood. This is not his focus. He wants that intimacy, that spontaneous connection. And now we're saying, no one but me, however, can bestow the kind of loving service performed by the residents of Braj. Only the residents of Braj are like his closest family members. Krishna doesn't know he's God in Braj. There's no Godhead in that sense. He's Sarvagya and he's Mugdata. He's all-knowing, Sarvagya, and he's Mugdata. He doesn't know that he's God. If he knew he was God, how could Mother Yashoda bind him? How could the gopis chastise him if he had the consciousness of being God? Huge distinction. This is the distinction between Dwarka and Braj. My Gurudev practically gave his life for this teaching. What is the distinction between Dwarka and Vrindavan? In Vrindavan, everyone knows that Krishna can't do anything without their support. But in Dwarka, everyone knows they can't do anything without his support. Completely different. We have to understand these intricacies of these topics if we want to capture, at least with our conscious, with our minds, why Mahaprabhu has advented. Text 27. Santav avatara bhava pankaja nabasya sarvato badra Krishna anya kova latsav api premdo bhavati. Translation. There may be many all-auspicious incarnations of the personality of Godhead, but who other than Lord Sri Krishna can bestow love of God upon the surrendered souls? Understand another thing. Advaita Acharya we're going to discuss soon. He was calling Krishna just to rectify the misguided jivas of the world. He wasn't calling on Krishna to give this Braja Prem, but it just so happened it coincided with the time when Krishna wanted himself to give this Braja Prem. But that wasn't why Advaita Acharya called him. If we follow closely the teachings of Advaita Acharya, he will give us Shuddha Bhakti, pure Bhakti. And by that pure devotion, if we hear the teachings of Mahaprabhu, we can come to Braja Prem. Text 28. Oh, sorry. Purport from the previous verse. This quotation from the writings of Bilvamangala Thakur is found in the Laghu Bhavanamrita 1.537. Text 28. Tahate apana bhakta gana kari sange pritiviti atvatari karimu nan range. Translation. Therefore, in the company of my devotees, I shall appear on earth and perform various colorful pastimes. Such amazing pastimes are going to be unfolded here. Text 29. Eta bhavi kali kale pratama sandhyaya avatirno haile Krishna apani nadyaya. Thinking thus, the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna himself, descended at Nadia, early in the age of Kali. Yes, early in the age of Kali. Purport. The Pratama Sandhya is the beginning of the age. According to astronomical calculation, the age is divided into 12 parts. The first of these 12 divisions is known as the Pratapna Sandhya. The Pratama Sandhya and Shesha Sandhya, the last division of the preceding age, form the junction of the two ages. According to the Surya Siddhanta, the Pratama Sandhya of Kali Yuga lasts 36,000 solar years. Lord Chaitanya appeared in the Pratama Sandhya after 4,586 solar years of Kali had passed. So Kali has just begun. There's another 370,000 years left to go of this Kali Yuga age, according to earthly years. Text 30. Caitanya Shimera Navadvipa Avatara Singha Griva Simhavira Simhare Hunkara. Thus, the lion-like Lord Chaitanya has appeared in Navadvip. He has the shoulders of a lion, the powers of a lion, and the loud voice of a lion. Text 31. Se singha vasuk jivera hridaya kandare kalmasatra virada nasha yanhara hunkare. May that lion be seated in the core of the heart of every living being. What a beautiful thought. Thus, with his resounding roar, may he drive away one's elephantine vices. May Lord Chaitanya be residing with his powerful lion-like potencies within the heart of every living entity and drive away all these huge vices that we've become attracted to in this Mayic world. Text 32. Pratama lilaya tanra vishvambara nam bhaktarase barile darile bhuta gram. In his early pastimes, he is known as Vishvambara because he floods the world with the nectar of devotion and thus saves the living beings. Text 33. Dubrindutara arta poshana dharana pushila darala prema dia tribhuvana. The verbal root, dubrin, which is the root of the word Vishvambar, indicates nourishing and maintaining. He, Lord Chaitanya, nourishes and maintains the three worlds by distributing love of God. Text 34. Sheshaliyai Dharanama Sri Krishna Chaitanya Sri Krishna Janaya Shaba Vishva Kaliyadana. In his later pastimes, he is known as Lord Sri Krishna Chaitanya. He blesses the whole world by teaching about the name and fame of Lord Sri Krishna. Purport. Lord Chaitanya remained a householder only until his 24th year had passed. Then he entered the renounced order and remained manifest in this material world until his 48th year. Therefore, his Shesha Lila, or the final portion of his activities, lasted 24 years. Some so-called Vaishnavas say that the renounced order of life was not accepted in the Vaishnava Sampradaya, or disciplic succession, until Lord Chaitanya. This is not a very intelligent proposition. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took the sannyas order from Shripad Keshava Bharati, who belonged to the Sankara sect. So we're celebrating also the Abhibhav of Sankaracharya today. Actually, I meant to say that this personality, Garhasti Nemi, was a Sankarite previously to coming to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. He was one of the original sannyasis that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati bestowed that renounced order upon. And Garhasti Nemi, he was a Sankarite himself. And it's interesting that he happens to disappear on the same day as the appearance day of Sri Sankaracharya. This is quite significant, I would think. You can think about it, but that's significant. In Vishnu Swami's Vaishnava Sampradaya, there are 10 different kinds of sannyas names and 100 different names for sannyasis who accept the Tridanda, the triple staff of sannyas. This is approved by the Vedic rules. Therefore, Vaishnava sannyas was existent even before the appearance of Sankaracharya. Although those who know nothing about Vaishnava sannyas unnecessarily declare that there is no sannyas in the Vaishnava Sampradaya. So Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada is very carefully purifying this misconception. During the time of Lord Chaitanya, the influence of Sankaracharya in society was very strong. People thought that one could accept sannyas only in the disciplic succession of Sankaracharya. Lord Chaitanya could have performed his missionary activities as a householder, but he found household life an obstruction to his mission. Therefore, he decided to accept the renounced order sannyas. Since his acceptance of sannyas was also designed to attract public attention, Lord Chaitanya, not wishing to disturb the social convention, took the renounced order of life from a sannyasi in the distinct succession of Sankaracharya, although sannyas was also sanctioned in the Vaishnava Sampradayas. In the Sankar Sampradaya, there are 10 different names awarded to sannyasis: Tirtha, Ashram, Van, Aranya, Giri, Parvat, Sagar, Saraswati, Bharati, and Puri. Before one enters sannyas, one has one of the various names for a brahmachari, the assistant to a sannyasi. Sannyasis with the titles Tirtha and Ashram generally stay in Dwarka, and their brahmachari name is Swarup. Thus known by the names Vana and Aranya, stay in Purushottam or Jagannath Puri, and their brahmachari name is Prakash. Those with the names Giri, Parvat, and Sagar generally stay in Badrigashram, and their brahmachari name is Anand. Those with the titles Saraswati, Bharati, and Puri usually live in Sringeri in South India, and their brahmachari name is Chaitanya. We should remember where these sections are in the Caitanya Caritamrta if at some point we want to reference this. This is wonderful, clarity Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada is giving. We should remember where it's in, this third chapter. Sripad Sankaracharya established 4 monasteries in India in the 4 directions, north, south, east, and west, and he entrusted them to 4 sannyasis who were his disciples. Now there are hundreds of branch monasteries under these 4 principal monasteries, and although there is an official symmetry amongst them, there are many differences in their dealings. The 4 different sects of these monasteries are known as Anandvara, Bhogavara, Kitavara, and Bhumivara, and in course of time they have developed different ideas and different slogans. So we're familiar with this. It's quite common in Kali Yuga. According to the regulation of the disciplic succession, one who wishes to enter the renounced order of Sankara's sect must first be trained as a brahmachari under a bona fide sannyasi. The brahmachari's name is ascertained according to the group to which the sannyasi belongs. Lord Chaitanya accepted sannyas from Keshav Bharati. When he first approached Keshav Bharati, he was accepted as a brahmachari with the name Sri Krishna Chaitanya Brahmachari. After he took sannyas, he preferred to keep the name Krishna Chaitanya, just like Abhay Charan preferred to keep his name, Abhay Charan. The great authorities in the disciplic succession had not offered to explain why Lord Chaitanya refused to take the name Bharati after he took sannyas from a Bharati, until Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj volunteered the explanation that because a sannyasi in the Sankara Sampradaya thinks that he has become the supreme, Lord Chaitanya, wanting to avoid such a misconception, kept the name Sri Krishna Chaitanya, placing himself as an eternal servitor. Wonderful explanation. This was the whole build-up that Prabhupada wants to explain. Why Mahaprabhu kept this name and didn't change it to Bharati. Wasn't because in the Sankara order, that would have meant they had become God. And that was the last thing that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wanted to hear or establish. He didn't come for that purpose. Like all the other avatars, they sit in their Godhead, so to speak. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu does not. He's come to give love for God. How can he tell everyone that he is God if he's giving love for God? That would be contradictory. Lord Chaitanya placing himself as an eternal servitor. A brahmachari is supposed to serve the spiritual master. Therefore, he did not negate that relationship of servitude to his spiritual master. Accepting such a position is favorable for the relationship between the disciple and the spiritual master. This is most important. The authentic biographies also mention that Lord Chaitanya accepted the danda and begging pot, the symbol of the sannyas order, at the time he took sannyas. So we'll conclude here today, and we'll explore more on Monday. So thank you very much for your attention. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki jai. Sri Caitanya Caritamrta ki jai. Go Premanande. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Gaura Hari Bol. Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Gaura Hari Bol. Go Premanande, Hari Hari Bol. Vansha Kalpa Tarubhyascha, Kripa Sindhavibhacha, Patitanam Pavanebhyo, Vaishnavebhyo, Namo Namaha. Go Premanande.